Maybe live.
Yes.
Yes.
It's very casual, Amory, so don't worry.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Let's see here. I'm gonna,
And I have the bio pulled up, Gina.
yeah, perfect. Thank you. I'm just getting this streaming right now. Okay. Share your page, and we want laugh lines. All right, there we go. All right. So hi everybody. We are very excited to have our Friday guest today, Anne Marie. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's
Yeah, you bet. So we're Debbie's gonna go ahead and read your bio, and yeah, and then we'll jump in and learn about all the stuff that you do.
great.
All right, sounds good.
Okay, I got it pulled up. Now, don't mind me because I have my phone and everything's really teeny tiny. So if I'm squinting, that's why. All right. Well, we want to welcome Anne Marie. Anne Marie is a certified human behavioral specialist, coach, speaker, skincare, and self care enthusiast, and four-time Amazon bestselling author. She empowers women with she empowers women and entrepreneurs towards confidence, well-being, and purpose to help them become whole from the inside out, to foster courage and strength to accomplish life's purposes. So, Emery, welcome. We're so excited to have you.
So excited to be here. What a great way to spend my Friday night.
Same here. We love our guests and
Uh,
everything that they have to offer. So
yeah. And we
yes.
appreciate them, yeah, being here on a Friday night, especially like during summer hours too. So
Oh yeah,
we're very, very grateful to have you.
Thank you.
absolutely. So, yeah, so tell us a little bit about yourself and like what was the aha moment when you turned 50 or during your 50s?
Well, I constantly have aha moments. And thank God
Yeah,
for them because they carry me through,
yeah, yeah.
Especially when your brain has those surges and you're like stuck for a minute, like the little doll that's walking and all of a sudden it's like, oh. Um,
Mhm.
so I think for me was to, just um to love myself, that I have to love me and not, listen to the whatevers of other people, that God created me to be who I am, which got me into the behavioral part of it because a lot of people, you know, especially my personality type, which is I'm a C-type personality, and so I'm very cautious and I analyze everything, and and most of my life, I felt like everybody was over here and I was back here, and I lived that way for a very long time. But I'm worthy of love and respect as we all are, and I had
Mhm.
to take care of me first and put me first, not in a selfish way, but in a way that I could care for others later. Like Miss Flight Attendant, put your oxygen mask on first before
Yeah,
you help other
I,
people.
yes, I say that all the time with the self care and the self love.
Mhm.
100%. Yes,
Yeah.
Mhm.
you're right.
So, putting aside the opinion of others, because
Yeah.
if we start listening to them instead of listening, like for me, I'm Christian, I read the word, and that's my go-to, that defines who I am. So when we're looking to other people to define us instead of how God created us, and how we should be defining ourselves based on not that our gifts define us, but it's part of the makeup of who we are. So loving that part of us is very important because what's that? If you don't stand for anything, you'll fall for anything. And
Yeah.
so you have to stand up for yourself. You have to, command yourself in a way that, lets others know that they can't push you around.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think it's really hard for us as women to um be able to step into that place where, you know what, this is really what my heart is calling me to do, what I'm feeling very passionate about, and not, learning to turn off the noise from around us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So, because I know Debbie did experience some of that when she was going, switching careers. and
Yes.
find for what she was truly passionate about, her calling.
Mhm. And I think it's in, you're right, because I think you intuitively know what you want.
Yes.
And when people try to tell you what you want, I mean, you're the one who knows. You're the one who's living in your body. You're the one who's living your life. And I feel that intuition that you have inside you is, is what you need to follow.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
unless people are, you know, unless like I saw a Facebook post the other day and I'm trying to quote it, but if they're not going to pay your bills and they're not going to support you or whatever, you shouldn't be taking advice from them. So in that respect, we have to watch our inner circle and
Mm,
unless they've walked with us for a while and we understand that they have our best intentions at heart, then
Mm,
at that point it becomes easier to listen to their wisdom, but still, even if people are talking and giving you advice, you still have to listen to that inner voice. And
mm,
sometimes it's my inner voice that takes me out, and sometimes when I'm naughty and I want to go my own way, it's the wisdom of my friends that say to me,
mhm.
that one decision, are you sure?
yeah,
You
Mhm.
know? Yeah. So the
yeah.
resonation in your heart of what's supposed to belong to you and the way that you're supposed to go is what really matters,
Mm,
and not,
Yeah.
you know, um, right before COVID, I was impressed upon my heart to do certain things, and it may have looked really weird to a lot of other people, people that I had known for decades, that I had worked with for decades.
Mhm.
I had to listen to what God was telling me because changes were coming. We didn't know the changes were coming, but inside I was being prepared for them. And had I not listened to that voice, I wouldn't have the life I'm living right now.
mhm,
It
mhm.
was sad. Um, and scary, but here we are.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So did you like decide to write after, like, once you were in your 50s, or did you write your books before then,
I've
or
been writing for a long time for myself, to kind
Mhm.
of deal with the analytical part of me and the I don't understand part of me. And so my books are kind of like a compilation of, here's my screw up and this is how I overcame it. you know,
yeah.
so that I feel that if I could learn from the mistake of others and not make them myself, then it's I'm ahead of the game, you
Mm,
know when I
mhm,
when I fight what I see or what God puts in front of me to see and I don't follow, that's when I, go slower, don't gain as much. I'm not in
mhm,
as much abundance and peace in my life when I go against what I know what's in my heart. So,
Mm,
mm,
yeah.
mm,
But I did a lot of writing. So what happened was I was going to an event for someone that was retiring, and it was like a turnaround. And right around that time, I heard go online, and I'm thinking, go online. I already have a website. I'm online, but as I sought more clarity, it was like build another website, and this is what you're going to call it, and this is what you're going to put on it. And it wasn't perfection at the time, but as time evolved, it turned into something else. And then it was do this, do that, do that, do that. And as I followed each step, not knowing, like how's it going to link to the next step? What's even going on? But I'm going to be obedient because I know when I am, I turn out better. So
mm,
I just followed each step as I heard it, and as I went, was I wrong sometimes? Yeah. Did I need to tweak sometimes? Yeah. And sometimes it was easier than other times, but it just kind of evolved. And there was a lot of like one day I was waiting for my books to come in. I was feeling a little down. I don't know what, maybe you just woke up wrong that day or something.
mhm,
But I just started doubting myself because now, here it is. I just turned 60. It was right around the time that, I was about to flip over. And, for a quick second, my brain went back and it was like, what have you accomplished in life? And I knew where that voice was coming from, right? And all of these things started going through my head for about 2 seconds. And then I'm like, wait a minute. I've got a book that I've written that's coming right now. I was tracking it online, and it was like, how many other people have written a book at 60? If that's the only thing I've ever done, I was obedient to what I needed to get down in writing and I got it out there, and that just kind of, I think when we check in with ourselves and start, not in a
Mhm.
prideful way, but in a way to check in to see where we are so that we know where we're going. Because right now we're parked right here, but we need to go somewhere, you know? So if we recognize where we are, how we got there, the wins that caused us to get to where we are, then it'll help us to continue on days like that when, things are going great, but somebody's trying to tell you that they're not, you know?
Yeah.
And if we celebrate the little wins, it'll give us like the bump up, the lift to fly the plane and go to the next destination.
Yeah. I love that.
Mhm.
No, so Amory, you said that you started listening, to the voice to tell you, take you to one step to the other step. Like, what was it that you've written a book, and what was it that you're like, I want to accomplish and help people? What did you feel your purpose was? What was your purpose that was driving you?
So my purpose was to not have another woman feel as out of place as I felt throughout my whole life. You know, um, I'm an immigrant. My parents brought us here, when I was 7, and I grew up in New England. And I have two homes, you know what I mean? Not physically, but home over here and home over here. And it was a struggle for me, being misunderstood, not being able to speak the language, having kids bully you
Mhm.
because your parents don't talk right. I mean, the list goes on and on. But I just always felt like I was out here and everybody was out here living,
Mhm.
and I always questions the decisions that I made, the places that I went, the people I hung out. I mean, just everything in my life. And again, it's part of my personality too, was I just always felt like an outsider. And I didn't have the confidence to do the things to the level that I wanted to do them. And,
Mhm.
there were points in life where I had a lot of 2 steps forward, 3 steps back. I was in a debilitating accident was that when I was in my mid 20s, right on my way to start my new job. I had been there for a few months as a temp, and I flipped over on October 1st on them, you know what I mean? Like they bought me from the agency and now I'm starting with them. October 19th, I went to my dad's birthday, and the next day I came to borrow, because he had a, big car. I came to borrow his car to move the rest of my stuff so I wouldn't be, taking 5 things at a time in my little sports car, um, closer to where I was to work. And on my way, the wheel fell off the car, something weird happened. And I remember, you know, I I just lost control, and I thought, my last thought was, I'm gonna die. I can't get control of this car. I'm just gonna die. And so that led to I broke my back, and it was like an eighth of an inch. The bone went in, clean cut, like straight like this on the vertebrae, but it went in and it was an eighth of an inch from severing my spine. And now
Mhm.
I've got a traumatic brain injury, and I have to learn how to walk, not knowing that I was going to walk yet, right? Because that's what they told me. And then just this whole process of just learning how to function all over again between the brain and the legs and the body. And so, hearing uh things like, let your brain talk to your body, tell your feet to move, tell your feet to wiggle, tell your toes to wiggle, um my Italian hands just shook my computer. So that whole process, and then again getting to a pinnacle point, some guy runs a stop sign and slams me, in a whole set of other can of worms opening and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And then, just things happening in life. And I looked at them as, who put that mark on my forehead? To now, as I'm older and I look back, I've had I the privilege and honor to take care of my dad before he went to heaven, here in my home, taking care of him. And then right after that, being diagnosed with cancer, going through that, hysterectomy, double mastectomy, all these things. And then I started looking at them as, I mean, you can't make this stuff up because I started getting better and I was following the plan like I was talking about earlier. And then the next thing I know, I'm minding my own business, sitting in traffic. The sun's out, people are stopping and going, and I hear, "Err," and there's nowhere to go. It's a two-lane road.
Mm.
It's either the ditch or an oncoming car. So I just slammed on my brakes and I got hit from behind and, you know, so that was another year and a half of flying at half mast. And so that I think that that time for me, was when all my books came out. I took everything that was on there and there was like clarity. This goes in this book, this goes in that book, and everything that, I had was writing during COVID and during other times just came, and just fell into three different books. Um,
It sounds like it flowed.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
And I
That's
looked
amazing.
back and I thought to myself, if we could just embrace what's happening, even though it's bad, and understand that God loves us through it, and we don't get over it, right? We go through it, even grief. I
Mm,
lost both of my brothers in the past few years. Um, and you just come to a place where unless you're hanging on to God, you're just like a runaway train for me, you know? And that was all I had to hold on to. That was my hope, and I had to believe what was in the scripture and what was put in me. And embracing what's happening and not looking at it as it's happening to me, but happening for me. Because if I look back at every
Yeah.
little thing that happened, even though, sometimes it makes me sad. I
mhm,
know that if it wasn't for that, then there wasn't this.
mm, mm,
Yes. Yes.
And
mhm,
so that's how I choose to look at it because I can
Mhm.
sit here and when when I got cancer, the following year, my surgery, I found out in October. My surgery was in December. And then the following year when October came, and this is when everything, started happening, um, with the do this, do that. I kept hearing survivor, 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 and it started making me to the point of angry, you know? And I was like, God, why is this word angering me so much? Why would a word do that to somebody, you know? And then I heard there's a scripture called John 10:10 that he came to give us life and give it to us more abundantly. And so I felt him saying to me, it's because I called you to thrive, not to survive. And so I
mm,
knew then that I had to pick myself up, and I had to, because up to that point, we're in a different state from our close family, from, you
Mhm.
know, the other families out on the other side of the ocean. So there was really nobody to tell what was happening, you know? I mean, I told my sister and like maybe one or two other people, and that's
mm,
about it. Nobody really knew what was going on until like a year later. My friend called. I went to visit down south where you are, and I visited with one of my friends, and I told her what happened. She's like, the whole year, you didn't say anything. And I said, I just didn't feel, I just didn't have a voice. I didn't want to be known as the girl with cancer and people feeling sorry for me or whatever. You can't help me anyway unless you're praying for me, so why bother? That was my thought pattern,
mm,
because I was on
Mhm.
some of these groups and I realized that people, it's not that they're doing it out of malice, but a lot of people don't know what to say. You know what I mean? It's like when you
Right.
tell them you have cancer, you're just telling them what's going on. For me anyway, I'm not expecting you to
mm,
help me. I'm not expecting you to come over and clean for me or whatever. I just, this is what's happening in my life. And having all
Mhm.
those other things happen, it's like, whoop, no, one more nail over here. So I just felt the need to be quiet. But anyway, she called me a couple weeks after and she said, Hey, um, I was talking to this lady. She lives in your area and she wants to know, can I give her the name of your doctor because her surgery was botched and and yada yada. And I'm cooking dinner and she's in my ears wearing my Bluetooth. And I thought to myself, what the heck? I told you that in confidence. This is me in my brain. Now you're telling other people? I don't even know this person and you're sharing my story. And I said, sure. I said, this is his name. He should be online. And then we talked for a few more minutes and we got off the phone and I'm like, God, what the heck? And then I literally felt a tapping on my shoulder. I'm at the
Mm.
counter. I turn around. I put my peppers, and I remember I was cutting peppers, and I put those in the pan, and I turned back around, and I felt this little tap on my shoulder, and I heard that didn't just happen for you. It's time to come out of the closet, and I was like,
Yeah.
whoa, you know, and I'm not like vocal about it, carrying a sign or anything like that, but if somebody needs me or I hear their story and I think I can help, I'll say something, but I'm not, out
Mhm.
It's
running.
so amazing how our stories, like what we have experienced, there's
Mhm.
somebody out there who's either experiencing that right now or has had similar experiences, and how much our story can help to heal, how it can help to
Mhm.
guide
Yeah,
other folks and help, you know, give them some spark of
Mhm.
yeah,
it's gonna be okay. And
Mhm.
just by the way you live, and I know you mentioned in your sheet that you sent us a lot about gratitude.
yeah,
Mhm.
And
yeah.
so I'm wondering, is that something on those mornings where you wake up,
Hmm.
wanting to eat that poop sandwich is what I call it.
Yes,
Like, just let me eat my sandwich.
I know.
Um,
No,
are
I
though,
think
do
for
you
me,
find that gratitude, that finding that gratitude helps you through those
it
moments?
does. I think every little thing that happens, I just I'm thankful because
Yeah.
I know that, for me when I was going through it, one of the reasons why I didn't talk, because I'm just like really private, number one, but number two, I literally had people around me dying of the same thing. And here
Mhm.
I am, thriving, you
Mhm,
know, and
mhm,
people that didn't know how they were going to pay their hospital bill. And my
mhm,
husband, we still had a hefty one, but because of my husband's insurance, I didn't feel the impact like other people did.
mhm,
So
Mhm.
I was experiencing all these blessings in the middle of my storm while other people were worse off than me. But I always choose to look at the silver lining. Not that they were
Yep.
doing anything wrong, but I just felt guilty,
Mhm.
because I had to have that hysterectomy, but one of our friends died of, uterine cancer just like that. And
wow.
so going to that funeral, and that was when I met with my friend because I was in the area and told her about what happened.
Yeah,
Um, it's just I was just seeing death all around me, and here I am
Mhm.
living.
Mhm.
And that was a big part of me keeping my mouth shut because I was just afraid
yeah,
Mhm.
that, you know, why did my daughter die and you're still alive? Those were
mm,
my thoughts. And I had to be grateful that I was still alive, but not be prideful, like, haha, I'm alive, you're dead, you know?
right,
You know what
Yeah.
I
right,
mean?
Yeah.
And there's
Yeah.
a lot of that I found in different communities when things happen and you're making it through, you're struggling, but you're making it through, but other people aren't making it through the same,
Mhm.
you know?
yeah,
It's
yeah,
Mhm.
painful.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a blessing that you have something to share, that you've taken that experience and it's, giving you tools to help other people. Yeah,
Exactly.
and I feel those things that, if we survive some of this stuff, then we have this this innate, this thing inside us that wants to share with the world and share with other people. So I think it's wonderful how you went through all of that and the stuff that you've been through and that you are sharing that with everyone and helping people. So,
Yeah.
that itself is a blessing as well.
Yeah,
my
'cause
writing coach, Leslie Leyland Fields, I don't know if you've heard of
Mm.
her, but she's out in Alaska. And she teaches Your Story Matters, and she talks to her students about that we witness these, we bear witness to these things in our lives. And whether it's we experience it directly or, you know, uh, just whatever we're experiencing as part of our story. And it's important to share those things and share to uplift others and to, because it's amazing how many people do experience similar things as we do. And it can help to normalize for that person. It can help to just lift them up.
Yes.
So I think it's
Yeah, and no doubt there's
Good.
somebody out there that, you know, when you tell your story, they're like, oh my gosh, that's me. That's what, you know, I'm not the only one. It makes, it helps us not feel so alone
Yes.
when we have someone else that has had a similar experience or shared experience like that. You know, because when you go through something like that, like you said, you know, when you first talked about feeling like an outsider when you came to this country, you know, you're not, you know, you felt alone, but now sharing your story makes other people not feel so alone when they're going through the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's always, I find that when you share your story, I think you're brought before people for a specific time, for like this time
Yeah.
we're aligned, you know, and
Mhm.
and you'll know when to speak, you know, because
Mhm.
it was time to come out, you know.
Mhm.
Even now it's time to come out, you know,
Mhm. Mhm.
from this other little thing that happened. And so we have to eh, be better from what we've gone through and not bitter, because when
Yes,
we're bitter,
yes.
you know, and it can't be just a cliche. We have to live that, you know. And for me,
Mhm.
being grateful for like I said, every little thing, I'm constantly, you know, we lost our AC this past week. It just died, and we were like yesterday. No, yesterday when they put it in, a couple days ago they put it in, and I came upstairs and the new thermostat had come up, and I left my phone downstairs. I wish I had gotten it, but it said 100 on there, and it was hot where they were putting it in, you know. And it was just like what, a week of just sweating, waiting for the
Oh,
unit to come in, you know.
yeah.
And
So
it's
did you
just
do
one of,
some yoga, sweat yoga?
oh, I got up and I was walking and it was hot,
Uh,
you know, turn the fan on
yeah.
high and just take a shower, then take another
You made it
shower,
out of lemons?
you know. But those kind of things happen, and you know, both of us were like, well, we have electricity, we can turn the fans on, we have water,
Yeah.
we can, you know, so always looking for that something so that it doesn't, you know, as Italians we're kind of conditioned to and it's funny because my brother and one of my brothers and I used to do this all the time, like we would tell guess what happened to me today? And he would be like, yeah, well, this is what happened to me. And he's always like one-upping me on his
Yeah, it's
stories,
a
you know?
competition. But yeah, it's kind of funny you said that because my husband's Italian and I'm very close to like my sister-in-laws and them. And then my parents are from Eastern Europe. So it's so funny how you say that because it's always a one up, you know,
Mhm.
instead of like being grateful for what you have.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, you want to hear something terrible.
You
Wait
think
here.
that's bad? Wait. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the competition. That's
Yeah.
well, you could take it into a gratitude competition. You know how something wonderful happened to me
Yeah.
today. At least I
Oh,
have
yeah. Yeah.
electricity. Yeah.
Because my sister and I started a while ago, we started gratitude jars. And
Oh, that's
yeah,
great.
and I went to go visit her one day and I had posted it on Facebook, right? So I went, actually it was when I went up for my brother's memorial. We had a little service for him. And I noticed on her counter this jar with all of these little things in it. I didn't have my glasses on, so I brought it up to me and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, she has a little gratitude jar." You
That's
know,
awesome.
yeah, and so it's just when you have that, it's like for those of you
Yes.
that have children, you know, when they come and they say thank you when you do something for them, as opposed to, you know, because kids have different personality types and some are very grateful and some are like, you know, is that all you're giving me? You know, and it's just who they are, right? But I think that, you know, God loves a child that comes back and says thank you, because then we want to do more for them when they do that, you know? And I'm not doing it to get more. I'm just doing it because I'm grateful. And
Mhm.
I'm doing, I got another book coming out.
Too.
And I'm
Well,
working
how
with,
many do you have out already,
well,
Anne-Marie?
I have three that I personally wrote
Mm.
myself. I
Okay,
did an anthology and a couple of other books,
yeah.
and now I'm writing another one with my PA. I had to have back surgery from that accident, so
Yeah.
I've been healing from that this past year. So her and I are going to write the book together. She's going to write from the PA's doctor's perspective. I'm going to write from the patient's perspective. So
Wow.
we're
Love
working
it.
on that right now. And one of the because I was writing a paper, I during this time I enrolled in a program to get a double degree, so in business and ministry, right? And while I was in there, I had all that time laying flat on my back to
Mhm.
do these things, you know.
Yep.
No grass grows under my feet. And so again, I was very quiet about what was happening
Yeah.
because that's just me.
Yeah.
So I had to write a paper for this thing. Um,
Mhm.
and then they removed that requirement, but my paper was already done because I had the time and I wanted to get it done. I didn't want to procrastinate at the last minute. So it was all about how dopamine and thankfulness and gratefulness helps us to have healthier bodies and how,
Yeah.
you know, our what our neurotransmitters do and things like that. And
Yeah.
I did it from a clinical, you know, like factual perspective of what it
Mhm.
actually does, but
Mhm.
also a spiritual perspective of what it does. And so I'm incorporating that as well as, you know, I mean, I didn't diary every day, but I'm going back on my journey to go through my process, you know?
Yeah, I love that. It
Yeah.
Yes.
really does. It really all of that mindset is huge.
Hmm.
Yes.
And even laughter. And when you
Yes.
Yeah.
mentioned, the gratitude, the more that we draw, Debbie and I talk about this all the time, like
Yeah.
the more positive you draw,
Yes.
the
Hmm.
more
Yes.
the more positive you are, the more positive you're gonna draw into your life. And
We're,
so,
we're energy, right? And I don't mean that
yes.
in a silly way, right? But it says it in Genesis 1, you know, God is light, we're in his image, right? And so we attract whatever it is that we are. And so if we're in ungratefulness, we're going to attract ungratefulness. If
Yeah.
we're being poopy, we're going to attract poop, you know?
Yeah.
So it's really important to watch what, and you could see remember those old commercials? I don't know how old you are, but this is your brain on drugs. This in the
Yeah.
Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
there's actual you know, scientific proof like what music
Mhm.
does to your brain. Even, you know, when my dad was with me, I could see the change because we were both music
Yeah.
lovers. You know, we both played the clarinet. I played other instruments too, but he got me started, and I would put the you know, the music on for him and it would just light him up, you know. Um, and so there's all of these things that light up our brains, which
Mhm.
light up our
Yes.
bodies, which light up our lives, you know, no pun intended, but
Yeah.
um, there's
And that,
actual proof of that.
yes, and they do have, you're right. And I'm formerly from the medical field as well, but you're right. And when you talked about energy too, I love how you are very like, open-minded with that because it goes across like, in other spiritual aspects as well. You know what I'm saying? So it's very, very similar, like what you said, that yes, we are energy and what we put out, we do attract what we are. And when you were talking about healing and the music and there is science, like you said, scientific fact that frequency affects certain brain waves and how
Yes.
it affects the rest of your body and your nerves and your muscles and all of that stuff. So I just love your spiritual take, and your spiritual perspective on it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
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 And
Yeah.
even when you said that you were the doctors after your back, was it your back surgery where they told you to command your feet to move?
No, that was
In?
actually I was laying in bed one day and
Uh-huh.
I was I'm just at a point where
Mhm.
I can't, there's nothing I could do. I had to lay completely flat
Right.
because
Yeah.
they were afraid that if they, if I stood or anything like that, that it would cave in even more and sever the spine.
Yeah.
And after like about a month or so, maybe 2 months that I was in the hospital, they did a X-ray and they saw that it was going back a little bit. And so, let's do some more, let's wait. But at one point it was like, how am I going to walk again? And
Mhm.
and it was like your brain is the key. I heard it in my head. You have to command your body, command it with
Yeah.
your brain.
And
And
it's all connected.
now
That's
this
the
Yeah.
thing.
and this is 40 years ago, before
Wow.
any of this stuff
Yeah.
even,
Yeah.
you know, because all I heard
Yeah.
was tell your toes to move. And at first I was like, okay, toes move, and nothing was
You're like, it's not working.
no, I was like, all right, whatever, and then it was like toes
Toes, I
move.
told you
Eventually,
toes.
yeah,
That's it. That's funny.
eventually I felt it, and it was coming down. And now years later, it's
Yeah.
documented that you can
Yep.
do those things.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
isn't it interesting how 40 years ago you had that again, that intuition, like, I'm just gonna, like, we all have that knowledge.
Yes.
We all, I feel like we have that inherited knowledge
Mhm.
that it is connected. It's all connected. All you have, and tell your brain to, like you said, tell your toes to move. You knew way back then that
Mhm.
there's a connection there, that's how it works.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And one of the
Mhm.
most unhelpful things that we can say to ourselves is, I can't. Because
Mhm.
when I try almost every night that I go to bed to ask a question, whether
Mhm.
it's something that's really, on my heart, or, something I just want the answer to. Because when you go to sleep, your mind is resting and it's healing your entire body. And so if you go to bed angry and you go to bed upset, or you go to bed having bad thoughts, and you're unhopeful, you're just going to wake up the same way. But
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
ask yourself, like sometimes I ask myself, hey, I really want to do this one thing, but I'm not sure how to go about it. Lord, help me to, whatever it is, I ask a question, because I know that it may not happen right when I wake up, but my brain is going to start searching for the answer. And so it's constantly working
Mhm.
for me, right? But when I say I can't, right away, don't listen, right away, um, your brain just stops because you just told it couldn't. So everything,
Right.
it's like this, the light's turning yellow and it's going to come to red, and your brain is just coming to a screeching halt because you
Yeah.
just said, I can't.
Yep.
And until you say, okay, let's go, or something else to negate what you just said, it's going to continue in that way until it gets permission to move forward again, to move freely about the cabin, you know?
Love it. I love how you.
I love the airplane references.
Oh God, you're so good. I love one of the one of the things I'm when I started, this is second career for me, 3.5 years ago. I started this job. I was in a medical field. Oh my gosh, there's so many puns in the air in the air. But I love all of your so far. I love them. I love them, Amory. It's amazing. I love that. I love the relatables, relatables you mentioned. But yeah, you're right. No, you're right. And the way you said, tell your brain, especially before you go to bed. It's like, you know, you ask a question, and your brain will work at any way to find how to solve that problem,
Yes.
or a way for you to, hey, I want to help people. Okay, well, you're gonna do it step 1, 2, and 3. It'll plan it out for you. It'll tell you exactly how to do it when you
And
ask.
when you're going through like menopause and stuff like that, you're going
Mhm.
through bodily changes.
Yes.
You have
Yes.
to tell your body, because
Yeah.
I would get like this anxiety that would come out of
Mhm.
nowhere, and then I'd get hot and I'd be like freaking out. And it's like, what's going on here? You're not in control. Calm down. The world's not coming to an end. The little chicken's not running around. The sky's not going to fall, you know? And I would have to t remind myself that it's, pardon the pun, it's all going to be all right. It's all going to be Irie. I was Jamaican for a minute, because I needed to calm it down. And so when I would go to sleep, I would say to myself just certain things that,
Yeah.
my body needed at that moment, like you're not going to
Mm,
sweat the whole night long, just calm down. Everything's going to be all right. And
yeah.
there's an answer for everything. And it may not be the answer I want, but it's going to be an answer, So I always talk to myself positively so that I can, and even the little puns that I make because of, the TBI, I just, it helps me to remember things,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
Yeah.
cements them in my mind so that, I have a word,
Yeah.
I have a picture to go with it. And so it just kind of helps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to talk to ourselves like that so that we don't just, because it's funny when my dad, um, when my dad was passing, my husband had already gone through something similar, and I said to him, because he's not eating anymore. This is happening, that's happening, the other thing's happening, and I said to him, I said, well, what do you think? How much longer do you think he has? Because my dad
Yeah.
would say to me, um, you know, I had a talk with God the other day, and it's like, what the heck is going on? Why haven't you taken me yet? And I'm like, okay, Dad. And I would just listen to him, I said, because you need to bug me some more or something. And
There's a purpose.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And my husband said it's probably just going to be a couple more days, if that,
Mhm.
And I said,
Mhm.
okay. And he goes, why? I said, I don't know. I'm just trying to prepare myself because that's me. I have to prepare myself. I said, so here's how it's going to go. I'm either going to curl up in a ball and do absolutely nothing, and you'll have to scrape me off the floor, or I'm going to go into, I'm going to go into task mode, not as if nothing happened, but, just to take care of things that need to be taken care of. And that's exactly what I did. It was
Wow.
like,
Mm,
you know, and just neither way is right, neither way is wrong. It's who you are and your body's way of dealing with things. Same thing with grief is a fingerprint. Nobody has the same fingerprint, so you could grieve one way and I could grieve another way. We're
yeah.
both grieving, but the important part is that we grieve properly. And we, if you need to cry for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or however long it takes, go away and do it. Don't keep yourself from grieving in the way that you need to, but also, you know, don't linger around and let it stay longer than it's supposed to, because it's not, grief is not your friend. It's your
Mhm.
helper, but it's not your best friend. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean?
Mhm.
It's not like a
Mhm.
Yes.
companion that you want to carry with you for the rest of your life, because I have seen it take control of people's lives to the point where they're
Yes.
to and they
Mhm.
don't know it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yes.
Um, and so, I just
Yeah.
one
It's
year we had 18 people die in 17 months. I think that's best. And so one day my sister sent me a text with, just dead, it's just a bunch of flies. And I'm like, what the heck is happening? She goes, what's happening? They're dropping like flies. And I'm like,
You
but
guys
it
have
was
a
she
like,
dark
found
sense of
she
humor.
found the humor in some.
yeah. And it wasn't that we were, trying to make it was
Yeah.
just a way of coping.
No. Yes.
But the
Yes.
point is that we had to go from one to another to another to
Yeah.
another.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
you just you have to honor their lives, honor
Yes.
their legacy, take what you can and leave the rest, because
Yes.
it will consume you. I mean,
Yeah.
I've
Mm,
just seen it
yeah.
so many times.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Love that.
Yeah, no, I love the way you worded that. That is so true. Especially with grief, it's a visitor, not a permanent resident.
Mhm.
Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly. And
Hmm.
a lot of people don't know what to say or how to handle the situation, and I've personally found, like on both sides of the fence, that the less you say, the better. The person
Yeah.
just needs a hug. They need to know that you're there. And,
Yep.
they don't need, I loved when people shared stories, positive stories of my dad,
Yeah.
that kind of showed me who he was to them. and the light that he brought to them. And I've also had situations where people think that that's the time that they could just let go of all of their stuff and just dump it on you, you know,
Mhm.
and you will be ushered out of the room, you know.
I think you're right though, Anne Marie, that people don't know how to
Mhm.
eh, sit with being able to just sit with somebody, sitting
Silence is good.
sitting in that
You know what
space.
I mean?
And yeah,
That's
mhm.
one of the times I think where silence is good. It's golden.
Yeah,
Even if
yes.
just, I remember when my grandmother died, I didn't know what to say to my grandpa. We all lived in this huge house. One of us was on the first floor, they were on the second floor, somebody else was on the third floor, when we had just moved here. And I just sat there and I just held his hand. And I wish I could have said something, we were just sitting there watching TV, but I just stayed next to him and I
Um,
just kept holding his hand. And then, weeks, months later, he said to me, he goes, that little hand helped me through. You may not have said much, but that little hand helped me through. And that's
mhm.
when I realized that, because other cousins were coming and they were saying all of these things. And I'm the quiet one. I'm just sitting there, I'm holding your hand and I'm feeling useless. But, you know, that was
Yeah.
my contribution. And
Mhm.
our contributions matter to others, but,
Mhm.
you know, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. So if people want to learn more about you or your services, your books, how do they find you?
Everything is on my website,
Okay.
wethriveatlife.com.
Okay. So
Okay,
and we
awesome.
and we always add those links. So listeners, as you know, we add those links. So check out Anne Marie and what she offers and definitely check out her books. We're gonna like check those out as well. I think there's just so much value in storytelling and the things that we experience in life and being able to help others. I'm in memoir and all that myself, so I think that there's a lot of value in that to be able to help
Mhm.
others that way. So, did you have any other questions, Debbie? That's-
Oh no, I just listening,
yeah,
no, I
yeah,
think this has been an amazing conversation. I just
loved it.
loved everything Emery said. I just so resonated with it, Emery. And I love your story and thank you so much for sharing. And listening to you talk about even your dad, it reminds me of, like, my dad too, like when my dad passed away, but it's kind of funny when, even my brother and I found some humor, like, even after he passed, like, you go between sobbing and laughing and and it's all
It's
part of
okay.
coping.
It is.
Mhm.
Yes,
It is.
yes.
And allowing yourself to, you know, to be straight, dismantle, be straight
Mhm.
again,
Yes,
come apart.
yes.
It's just allowing yourself to do that because it's
Mhm.
necessary to go through the process. But the important part is to go through and not to
Yeah.
just stay there,
Yeah.
because we're never going to get over them being gone. When people say, "Oh,
Mm.
get over
No,
it," no, they're
no, I agree.
part of your
And it
heart.
really truly just shows I heard a quote once and I can never remember exactly how it went, but it when we miss them and when the grieving, that's how much that's the love that we had for that person or that
Yeah.
pet or whoever it is, that's our love for that person,
Mhm.
that spirit. And so I think that it shows how much we love them.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's true. It's like
Mm.
they come to our remembrance and we just,
Yeah.
there's a scripture that says, may their memory be a blessing to you.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And so
Beautiful.
we
Yeah.
pray that, those memories are a blessing. And I did, on my website, all my books are there. And I just
Excellent.
uploaded a 90-day blog, and there's one day, I think it's day 29, where I talk about grief, and how I
Yeah.
think about it and stuff like that, because like I said, it's just really dear to my heart that people,
Mhm.
if that person was even I feel like even the most evil person wouldn't want us to move on. You know what I mean? They
Mhm.
would want us to keep going and to
Yeah.
live and to honor them by living.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I love that. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are thrilled that you came and shared all your wisdom and just your experiences. There's so much wisdom in what you've experienced in life. And so thank you so much for bringing all of that to us and to our listeners.
I love you too. You've brought so much light and peace to me in this 1 hour. You have no idea.
Oh, we love that. Oh, thank you so much, Amory. Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.
Okay.